Welcome to part 2 of chapter 1 of my Catholic superhero novel, Task. Let's get right to it. And break. 90 seconds. You're muted, the producer from before said in Matthew's ear. He stood and began to remove his microphone and earpiece. God, man, you're still so damn Catholic all the time, Jenny said as the set was changed behind them. Matthew frowned at Jenny's words while he put his microphone, earpiece, and battery pack down on his chair. He shook his head. Jenny, that's the point, he said. I'd be a pretty bad Catholic if I was faithful only when it was convenient. You really have not changed since college, Jenny said. We need to catch up. You've been scarce since you started caring for Miss Byrne, and you look really tired. And you look like an inside-out creamsicle, Matthew said. She was wearing a stylish, off-white fitted suit with an orange blouse. It looked good on her. Yikes, sorry. I'm not saying you look bad, just... I'm sorry, it's okay, you're right. I've been holding back the phenomenon for more than 800 days now. I'm even more tired than I look. And I still have to do everything else for the government and the company. It's wearing on me. And caring for Miss Byrne every day, Matt, don't forget that. That's the one thing I never forget, Jenny, Matthew said. It's technically the most dangerous thing I do. Jenny took a moment to digest what Matthew said, and to choose her next words carefully. So the phenomenon really does take down your shield? Matthew nodded. When I'm deep enough in it, I'm vulnerable. No null field. Well, as vulnerable as a gravity-manipulating man ever is, Jenny said. I correct myself. Relatively vulnerable. They're saying we're back in 10, Jenny said as she tapped her ear. Matthew took the handheld microphone one of Jenny's assistants gave him. Thank you, he said. When the cameraman gave the sign, he said, Hello, studio audience. There was some light applause and a few whoops. Yeah, I'm tired too, Matthew said. The comment got some smiles and a few laughs. Mr. Ward is ready to take your questions, Jenny said. She smiled politely, but it was clear to Matthew this was not her favorite part of her job. Many hands shot up. Matthew searched for a young-looking guy and found one wearing a green polo in the second row. Gentleman in the green shirt, second row. What's your question? Matthew asked. A microphone was brought to him. He stood up and smiled. Thanks, sir. I just want to know, is Faustina single? Matthew smiled and shook his head as the young man handed the microphone back. There were some chuckles from the audience. I knew it, Matthew said. That's always the first question. My answer is that she's got 4 older brothers and 2 older sisters, all with powers. You ready for that? The audience laughed. Her morning stream goes live soon. You should join her chat and ask her yourself. When Jenny's show is over, of course, Matthew added when the laughter ended. Next question. A pretty woman in a blue jacket in the 6th row stood up and waved her hand. The lovely lady in blue standing there, Matthew said as he gestured to her. Thank you, the woman said when she was given the microphone. She had a resonant and attractive speaking voice. I don't care about your sister. I want to know if you are single. That got the audience going, and Matthew blushed a little as he laughed. Technically I am, but I'm so busy I only have time for women who can meet me in my dreams, he answered. His own candor surprised him. The woman in blue had a disappointed look as she handed the microphone back to the assistant. This is a good chance to ask the question we're seeing across all our social media accounts, Jenny said. What about codename Fuse? Samantha? Oh, Jenny, that's ancient history. She's beautiful, talented, wonderful, really, and I consider her a good friend, but it did not work out. That's too bad, Jenny said. A lot of people were rooting for you two. Matthew merely shrugged. He did not want to share too many details about his short-lived romance with Sam with the public. Besides, there was no way a relationship with Samantha would have worked, even if he did not have his connection with Maggie. We have time for one more question, Jenny said. Matthew saw an elderly man with glasses and an armed forces cap raise his hand. Yes, sir, in the 4th row on the aisle, and before you begin, may I thank you for your service? The man rose and took the microphone. He nodded. You may, and you're welcome, young man. You have good manners. Sir, you just made my mom and dad smile. Thank you, Matthew said. I don't have a question. I just wanted to tell you I respect you for holding to your principles, and I'd like to shake your hand. It would be my honor, sir, Matthew said. He handed his microphone to Jenny and gestured that he was going to go to the man. and then used his power to rise into the air and float over to him. There were many wide eyes, a few gasps, and a young child exclaimed delighted nonsense. No matter how many times people saw him fly on camera, it was different when they saw him do it in person. It made the outpouring real to them and gave them an inkling of what it meant to be one of the children. The old man was not disturbed, or if he was, he did not show it. "You're a bit of a show-off, aren't you?" he said when Matthew landed. Matthew leaned toward the microphone the man was holding. "Whatever gave you that idea?" he asked. The audience laughed. Matthew extended his hand to the elderly gentleman, and the man took it firmly and shook. "You stick to your guns, son," he said. "Don't let this lady or anyone else tell you otherwise." "Thank you, sir," Matthew said. "I will. God bless you." "God bless you, and God bless America," the elderly gentleman replied. "Amen," Matthew said. The audience applauded, and Matthew hustled down the steps to where Jenny stood. "Mr. Ward has to go now," she said to the audience, "but you are going to get to see firsthand why his code name is Pull." Matthew saw the studio clock. It read 8:31 a.m. He was on time for a change. "Jenny, always good to see you. God bless you and your family," Matthew said. "Now, if you would kindly step back about 5 feet. "Take care of yourself, Matt," Jenny whispered to him. She stepped back. Matthew reached out with his right arm and exerted his power. He could feel the weight of the gravitational anchors he had placed at HQ hundreds of miles away. He used his power to latch onto them, twisted his hand, and pulled his arm back. The air shimmered for an instant, then puckered, and then a 7-foot-tall, oval-shaped portal opened in front of him. He had made the portal using the old, inefficient method he used to use when he was a kid. It was slower, but it looked more impressive on camera. "Scientists have told me I am making wormholes when I do this." Nah. He's not saying I am. Let's try that again. "Scientists have told me I'm making wormholes." I don't have to say it like that. "Scientists have told me I'm making wormholes when I do this," Matthew announced to the audience. "But I like to think of them as portals. Sounds cooler." No one in the audience argued terminology with him. They just stared, more than a few with open mouths. Even Jenny was awestruck. Matthew waved to the audience and the cameras, stepped through the portal to HQ, and then sealed it behind him. He couldn't hear them, but he knew the studio audience was applauding. And that's the end of Chapter 1, Part 2. Thank you so much for watching this far. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you've listened to and read, please like, share, subscribe, and I especially ask that you leave a comment with your critical or positive or both feedback. Thanks again, God bless you, and stay tuned next week for Chapter 2.
Ooh, ancient province.